You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
By no means is it a guarantee that Syracuse makes the conference tournament. It's not a guarantee, especially with what we have seen from the Orange this season. And there are two games that stick out to me above the rest as far as the importance level for Syracuse to make the conference tournament. The first one is NC State on February 26th. NC State at the time of this recording is 2-10 in conference play this season. Obviously not very good. Worse than Syracuse, right? Now they play at home tonight on Wednesday at 7 o'clock against Louisville. So they're either going to be 2-10 or 2-11, 2-11 or 3-10 by the end of the evening on Wednesday, February 12th. And for the sake of Syracuse basketball making the conference tournament, we want Louisville to beat NC State. We really do, because if NC State manages to pull off an upset, these are some of the following games the Wolfpack have on their schedule. Ready? Boston College at home, at Georgia Tech, at Miami, and oh, by the way, they play Syracuse, right? On February 26th, it's in Syracuse. I think it's realistic that NC State, in that 4-game stretch that I just told you, at Syracuse, at Georgia Tech, at Miami, Boston College at home, that the Wolfpack go 3-1 or 2-2. It's also on the table that the Wolfpack run the table in those games. They could very well go 4-0 for all we know. But if Syracuse basketball manages to beat NC State, not only will they own the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Wolfpack in the event that the two teams tie, but it would also give Syracuse basketball 6 conference wins, which very well could be enough to put the Orange in the top 15 in the conference. Not only that, I mentioned the tiebreaker, right? Let's say Syracuse basketball, their only remaining win is against NC State. That's it, right? That's the only one they get out of their final 6. Well, if they do beat NC State, that means in order for the Wolfpack to surpass Syracuse, they would need to get to 7 conference wins, which I don't see happening if they don't beat Syracuse. I don't see it for the Wolfpack. Could be wrong, but I don't see it. So it's unlikely that NC State would finish with 7 conference wins and Syracuse would finish 6th when NC State loses, or if NC State loses to Syracuse. Now, on the flip side, if the Wolfpack beats Syracuse, they can simply match. They can match the Orange in their win total. And if the two tie and they're both somehow in the conference tournament, they would have a higher seed than the Orange. And guess what? If they're both tied for that 15 seed, NC State would get in, Syracuse would be left out because they lost that head-to-head game against NC State. So that one is super duper important for Syracuse to get. If they beat NC State, get to 6 conference wins, have that tiebreaker over them, they're probably in. That's probably all they got to do, to be honest with you all. But the second one is Virginia at home on March 8th. The good news is that, before I talk about Virginia a little bit, the good news is that the 2 most important games remaining for Syracuse are both at home. You got NC State at home on February 26th. You got Virginia at home on March 8th. That's the final game of the regular season. So I guess you got dome advantage, right? Virginia is currently 5-8 in the conference, and they don't play until Saturday. So that record will hold true for, well, until Saturday, of course. Now, Virginia, they have a very difficult schedule coming up. Here are some of their games. They got at Virginia Tech. So that's a road game against a not really good team, but still on the road. You got Duke at home. That's a loss. You got at North Carolina, probably a loss. At Wake Forest, probably a loss. Clemson at home, probably a loss. Florida State at home. I guess Virginia could beat Florida State at home. And then, of course, they got Syracuse to end the regular season as well. It's on the table that Virginia loses every single game up until they play Syracuse. And there is also an outside chance that Syracuse, Virginia that final game of the regular season, it could decide who makes the conference tournament and who misses the conference tournament. That could happen. So that game is also super important. To me, I think it's unlikely, possible, but unlikely that Syracuse basketball is eliminated before that game against Virginia. So it could very well be the last chance for Syracuse basketball to at least salvage something of this season, which is making the ACC tournament. So those are the two most important games. Both are at home. Both are winnable. NC State and Virginia.